Meantime, back here at home, the U.S. created 80,000 jobs in October, slightly below the 100,000 jobs economists were forecasting. Want to get to the Republican reaction of the jobs number from Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee, who joins us from Chattanooga. Senator, always good to talk to you. Good morning to you.
Good to see you, Carl. I miss you.
And I miss you. I see you on Squawk, and it's tough to watch because I wish I were there. So the headline number really wasn't the story today. It was these revisions, which is giving a fair degree of hope to the bulls that maybe there's some sort of stealth bull market in jobs in this country. Maybe that's overstating it. What do you think?
Look, I was glad to see the revision upward, and look, I think the best thing we can do as a country, by far, is for this super committee to actually do something really big and give those who invest and the job creators, the companies all across our country, hope that we have the ability to actually tackle the structural issues that we have in our country. And Carl, we're going to know that probably in the next week or so. Some of us are pressing that inside this super committee bill, we also deal with a longer-term highway bill so that the infrastructure issue is dealt with in the proper way. But to me, as far as what our country can control, the best thing we can do is for this committee to do its work, do it in a really big way, and to be able to show people across our country that we can function.
Erskine Bowles, pretty dramatic testimony this week. Collectively, he says, I'm worried you're going to fail the country, puts $2.6 billion plan on the table. Does that go anywhere?
I hope so. For what it's worth, Carl, I worked the phones all yesterday morning, the hallways, really trying to give people the encouragement to do the things that need to be done. I mean, there's going to have to be some flexibility on both sides, but we've got to address these structural issues. You know, we're watching this tremendous overhang in Europe. Basically, we're seeing our potential future play out in front of us if we don't deal with it. Obviously, that itself is hurting our economy here as people don't know how that's going to end up being resolved. It looks to me like, Carl, they're doing just enough to stave it off, but not enough to kill it, and in the process wasting resources, which is very worrisome to me. But look, as far as what we can control, let's do something really, really substantial here. I'm hopeful, I'm pressing, I'm encouraging. You know, it's within our hands to get 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats. When are we ever going to have an opportunity better than that to deal with our country's big issues? Right.
Well, especially with the threat of this sequester hanging over their heads, which appears to be somewhat effective. Speaker Boehner saying that it would be incredibly painful to live through. And then yesterday he says that there is room for revenues, and obviously some want to drill further down into that statement. Do you think that marked a sea change in the way Republicans will approach this issue?
I think Republicans have been willing to look at things like change CPI. That affects the amount of money that goes out the door on many of our social programs. It lowers the speed at which it goes out because of inflation. But it also moves people into tax brackets in a quicker way. So that's certainly a revenue raiser, but it helps on both sides of the equation. I think people have been more than willing to look at tax expenditures, which is really just spending in another name, where, you know, special interest groups receive certain tax benefits, lowering, flattening, broadening. So I think all of those things many Republicans have been open to from day one, and hopefully they'll get into those things. But let's Carl, the other piece of it is we have got to deal with, we have to deal with Medicare. And, you know, it's got to be done. I sense a willingness from the Democrats that I've dealt with to do that. They know it has to be dealt with. When the average family in America is paying $119,000 into Medicare, including the employer contribution over their lifetime, and when they're taking out of Medicare $357,000, I mean, try to go public with that with one of your companies. I mean, it's an absolute loser. People know it doesn't work. So, again, this is a defining moment in our country. It really is. This is a defining moment. Our country is dissipating. As we continue to not deal with this issue, we're becoming weaker, we're becoming less relevant. This is a time for all of us to stand up and deal with this issue and move ahead.
So are you willing to, before we let you go, give us a baseline forecast for what you think the committee will turn in, absent any phony savings from troop withdrawals?
You know, Carl, I tell you where we are. You know, the CBO has to score what these guys come up with, and so there's a deadline that's imminent. I won't score it only because of all the conversations that I had yesterday with super committee members and others. And the reason I won't is we're at that moment where either something's going to happen or it's going to fall apart. I think there's a lot of tension. I think there's a little fraying of personalities right now. And so I don't want to call it. I don't know. All I'm saying is I'm encouraging that we actually do something that really deals with this issue. And personally, I think that's another $3 trillion on top of the trillion on August 2nd.
Yep.
I think that's the right number. But you could actually get something, Carl, that qualitatively is very good by dealing with many of the unfunded liabilities down the road. So I'm going to wait and judge it. I'm just pushing. I think this is, from a job standpoint, I believe if we were to do something very substantial, it is the very best thing we could do for our country's economy. So we're dealing with our structural deficits if we do it, but we're also helping Americans get back to work, which is what everyone wants to see.
Right. Well, that number would get people's attention, but like you say, we'll wait until it comes out. Senator, have a great weekend.